It was a difficult time in Cody Leidenheimer's life. He and his wife lost 2 children due to miscarriage, and he felt he had a hole in his heart that was a bottomless pit that he would never be able to fill again. Then, one day at work he was approached by a scrawny, big-eyed puppy. This unexpected encounter would lead both Cody and the dog on an incredible journey that neither of them will forget. Grab some tissues, animal lovers, because you'll need them. One day, while Cody Leidenheimer was working at his wood flooring factory job, he noticed a dog walk up to him. I instantly wanted to abandon post and grab the thing for cuddles, but I had work to get done. But he walked up to me and kept staring with his huge eyes. I pet him and noticed instantly that he was flea-covered, matted, and not in the best physical shape, Cody said. As I looked closer, I realized that he had a lot of gray around his muzzle, ears, and face. He wasn't a pup at all. I got him chickenish fast food during my lunch because he was so thin that I could feel his bones. That's when Cody had an idea. I started sending these pictures to my wife, planning on pleading to bring him home. But would his wife, Casey, agree? I didn't have to because she beat me to the punch, said Cody. I thought that I would have to herd him away from doors all day until I could clock out and take him home. The little guy fell asleep on the floor and stayed there all day. When the end of the day arrived, Cody was finally able to bring the poor pooch home. He washed off dozens of fleas from his coat and then took him to the vet, where he got some pretty bad news. It turns out that this little guy had an enormous list of existing conditions, the most sad being his stunted growth due to extreme malnutrition. The dog also suffered from cataracts and he had one dilated pupil from blunt force trauma to the head. He had ulcers in his stomach, which caused vomiting, and, to make matters worse, he was completely deaf. Cody and Casey decided to name him Rooster Cogburn after John Wayne's character in True Grit. We found it fitting due to his ability to keep moving despite it all, Cody explained. The veterinarian said that Rooster was a Shetland sheepdog, between 8 and 12 years old, and he weighed only 7.3 pounds. Like Rooster's namesake, he remained strong and unwavering throughout his recovery. Finally, it paid off. Here he is, after a surgery on the fistulas, a strict medicinal regimen, months of spoiling, and a family who loved him as much as their 2 children and then some, said Cody. Rooster even got a name upgrade. Cody continued. Toothless, nickname added by our 5-year-old daughter because of her love for How to Train Your Dragon. Rooster Cogburn was a dashing elderly gentleman in the vein of Sir Ian McKellen and Christopher Plummer. Cody and Casey treated their pup like royalty. He, in turn, showered them with unconditional love and affection. He loved being spoon-fed by his mommy, and Greek yogurt was his favorite treat, said Cody. Toothless Rooster Cogburn clearly loved to play dress-up. He might have had a painful life, but it was worth it to be able to end up with Cody and his family. He was certainly right at home with them. It was the perfect match. Though he was an older dog and he had his fair share of health issues, Toothless Rooster Cogburn had a spirit that could not be discounted. He was the life of the party, and the best friend Cody could have asked for. Naturally, Toothless Rooster Cogburn loved naps just like any good dog should. It was a relief for Cody and his family to know that this old pup was finally living in a place where he could snooze peacefully all day long. Sadly, this story had a tearful ending. Toothless Rooster Cogburn was given 3 months to 1 year to live, said Cody. He made it to 1 year before he got too sick to grace us with his awesomeness for one more day. Finally, on June 2, 2014, Cody and his family had to say goodbye. I watched the greatest friend, most loving pet, and the most heroic fighter I've ever met sink into a well-deserved final nap while his mother and I held his paws, said Cody. I never thought I could love a pet as much as I loved him, as much as we loved him. Everyone who met him instantly loved him. His vets, our friends, a theater full of patrons when he performed a walk-on role in a play. He truly was one of a kind. We hope that we gave him enough good memories to wipe out any bad ones that came before. Cody and Casey were able to provide a better life for the infamous Toothless Rooster Cogburn than he could ever dream of. Thankfully, he came into the right place at the right time. Stories like this one prove that dogs are so much more than just canine companions. They are devoted friends whose wide array of gifts and skills can help us accomplish things that might otherwise feel as if they are impossible. If you enjoyed this story, wait for our next story starting in 10 seconds. While every homeless dog deserves to be rescued, it can be difficult to convince them of that. From their perspective, rescuers could very well be out to harm them. especially if these dogs have already suffered abuse at the hands of humans. If they couldn't trust their owners, why would they trust a stranger? Layla the poodle had no reason to be different. This stray had been struck by a car and she was in desperate need of help. Her rescuers anticipated her reaction to their efforts, but boy, were they completely wrong. Strays often can't tell when someone's trying to help them, and so they quickly become aggressive or scared. Rescuers like Annie Hart from Rescue from the Heart and Eldad Hagar from Hope for Paws know this all too well. When Annie received an urgent call about a homeless poodle who'd been hit by a car in South Los Angeles, she immediately enlisted in Eldad's help. Together, the two rushed to find the dog, hoping it wasn't too late. Annie and Eldad finally spotted her hunched along the side of a busy road. They knew they'd have their work cut out for them, but this dog's behavior shocked even them. Despite the dog's injuries, she didn't seem to want to fight them. Instead, she did something quite different, and it quickly brought her rescuers to tears. It simply wasn't what their staff were used to seeing. Layla, as she was later named, seemed so resigned to her fate that she sort of just played dead. It was as if she'd said, "I give up." In response, Annie was eager to show her that she and Eldad meant no harm. Once Annie felt like Layla was ready, she gently secured a leash around the poodle's neck. Once again, whether it was because she trusted Annie or was just so weak, the homeless dog just didn't seem interested in struggling. Even once she had properly fastened the leash, Annie didn't want to rush Layla just yet. Rather, she continued to sit with the pup for a few moments longer. But then little Layla did something even more precious. While she was already clearly a calm dog, Layla decided to show off just how much of a love bug she was by offering up some wet kisses. Obviously, this was far from the usual routine for these animal rescuers, and it affected Annie in a way she didn't expect. In the midst of this bittersweet moment, she couldn't hold back the waterworks. Here was a dog who had suffered terribly and desperately needed help, but she still managed to show so much affection. Still, as powerful as those initial moments with Layla were, her story was just getting started. After a few more minutes, it was time to pick up the stray dog and take her to the hospital. She was as calm as ever as she rode shotgun all the way there. What she didn't know was how much of a transformation she was about to undergo. Once Annie and Eldad arrived at the hospital, Layla, still in desperate need of help, continued to display all the love she'd shown them before. She might have been frightened, but she never showed it. One of the first tasks on the agenda at the hospital was to almost completely shave her fur, which was matted and filthy. From there, they discovered their first real challenge. As the medical staff soon learned, Layla's intestines were severely damaged, and her life was in immediate danger. They had no choice but to keep her at the hospital for the next 2 weeks and pray that she pulled through. Luckily, Layla was not alone. Every day of her hospital stay, she was visited by a foster family who was prepared to care for her until she could find her forever home. Apparently, these daily visits, as well as the constant and attentive care from the hospital staff, did the trick. Not a day went by that Layla didn't grow stronger, healthier, and happier. Soon enough, after those few challenging weeks of treatment and recovery, Layla was starting to let her personality shine through. Finally, the sweet, fun-loving dog beneath was on the up and up. Layla may have been missing her signature curly fur, but she wasn't going to let something like that stop her from appreciating the new and improved life ahead of her. As always, she was more than happy to shower everyone with kisses. Finally, Layla was ready to head home with her foster family. Eventually, she'd need to find herself a forever home, but for the time being, she was going to be well cared for at long last. Layla was certainly the exceptional dog, and unlike any other homeless dog that Annie and Eldad encountered before. Just watch the tearful moment when Annie discovered her injured and helpless on the street.